Hey everyone, it's Loomer. So this video is a kind of deleted or bonus scene from my podcast with AC4 lead writer Darby McDevitt. It didn't quite fit in the flow of the main podcast, but I really like the conversation, so I thought I'd just release it separately. So I hope you enjoy it and stay tuned over the next couple days for the full podcast to come out. Enjoy.
When we look for a time period that we want to go to, we ask ourselves, can this assassin-Templar conflict that we've developed, does that fit in this era? And can we kind of tease it out? And so it all kind of works together. My favorite part is researching the period and trying to bring it to life. But the creed is especially important too. And with pirates, we thought that it was going to be extra fun because really early on, I created this sort of moral compass or philosophical compass, and I showed it to Jean. And it was basically, if you imagine a half circle, on the far, and it divided up into 4 pie segments. On the far end, we had the pirates. They were the complete anarchists without any sense of greater responsibility.
Sure.
And then we had the assassins who were kind of anarchists, but they did have an internalized sense of responsibility. Anarchists in terms of like people should be free to choose, free from constraints, free from liberty above all else, even if a little bit of chaos creeps into the mix.
Sure.
But there is this internal responsibility, and you can see that some of the pirates actually had that responsibility. Then we had the Templars, where they were for order and a kind of a meritocracy, where the smartest and most talented should probably rule people, but for their benefit, and it was incumbent upon them to not be cruel or dictatorial.
Sure.
And then on the far end of the spectrum, we had the monarchists, where we were saying like monarchists, kings and emperors, they believe that they're divinely mandated to rule, that there's a natural division of classes and races and sexes probably that should be obeyed at all costs. And so this was the compass that we played with, and we thought that Edward would begin kind of straddling the assassin pirate border, the frontier there.
Sure.
Whereas like Hornigold would be kind of on the pirate thing, but he was about ready to swing wildly back to the Templar thing, because he actually had just begun to hate the absolute irresponsible anarchy of the pirates.
Yep.
So this is our plan going in, and I want to say here first and foremost that like the way that I write these games, and I think the way that Jean thinks of them too, is this game is called Assassin's Creed. It is not called Assassin Warrior. Our game is about philosophies and different ways of thinking and different ways of interacting in the world. Now, certainly the main characters are always badass, fighters.
Right.
But we were not concerned. We knew that it would be a little bit controversial with some fans if you played a guy who was not an assassin for 99% of the game.
Yeah.
But that was interesting to us. We wanted that because at the end of the day, the game is about, for us, it's about these philosophies and the conflicts and what one would you choose? We love it when I love it when I see on forums this happens every month or so.
Assassin
on Reddit,
Templar, right?
Yeah, on the Reddit subreddit or the forums or initiates, they say which philosophy would you go for? And invariably, there's a pretty good split between them. I always find this funny. I've seen this a number of times where people say this slightly contradictory thing where they're like, I want more moral gray in this game. I also want more Templars to kill. It's like, I feel like you can't decide that you want to kill Templars ahead of time without hearing what they have to say. If you hear what they have to say and you still want to kill them, or at least if Edward hears what he wants to say, or if an assassin hears what they have to say and decides to kill them, go for it. But you can't decide ahead of time that the Templars, you need more Templars to kill, and that you want this gray area, because if ultimately the gray area doesn't mean anything, then what's what are we doing it for? So we knew that it would be controversial for some people to not play as an assassin, but we thought that would be the best way of somebody voluntarily choosing to follow this creed of do not harm the innocent, and well, those are the tenets, but
Right.
the creed itself. It's actually funny. There's actually no. We say the Assassin's Creed, but there actually is no sort of clause that's like protect the liberty of all men. That's kind of the implied goal. There's don't harm the innocent.
Yeah.
But the three tenets and the creed don't actually tell you what you're fighting for. They just give you sort of a very hazy moral gray area in which to work. But anyway, the established cause of the assassins is always to fight for liberty and against tyranny, even if it leads to a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, pirates fit in there pretty well. But the pirates in Nassau in AC4 are the guys that are like, yeah, we're just doing this for local reasons, you know? We're just doing this because we don't like being under the thumb of the king. A lot of these guys would consider themselves Jacobites, and they would have been, King George the First, who had come in after Queen Anne, was I think he was of German descent, and King George the First didn't even speak English; he spoke German, and he came in and ruled over England. I think in 1713 or maybe even earlier, 14 or 12. I can't remember. But this was a big change in the power structure of England at the time. And so the reason Blackbeard called his book Queen Anne's Revenge was because he wanted to go back to he actually probably had a lot more love for Queen Anne than he did this new German king. So there's this kind of just like, you know what, I don't like our new king, screw that guy. We're going to go live our own way on our own little island. They weren't very good statesmen. They didn't set up a constitution or anything. They just kind of played it by ear to see what happened. And they robbed people and stole. And so this feeds into why Edward doesn't become an assassin exactly in the entire game. Because the moment you become an assassin, you have to stop hurting innocent people.
Sure.
And that means you can't go rob people willy-nilly, and you can't go, attack forts just because you feel like it. And Jean once said to me a little while ago, he said, Assassin's Creed 1 is the only true game that is designed on the tenets of the creed.
Yeah.
Everything else is, well, actually, a reviewer of Black Flag said this, and I think it was the smartest thing said about our game. It said Black Flag is the first Assassin's Creed game that admits what they were all along, which is pirate games. Because Edward is running around, Ezio is running around acquiring money out of chests and pickpocketing people, rebuilding all of Rome and Brotherhood. There's this open world games have this set of mechanics that encourages conquering the world, right?
Yeah.
Step by step, you're going through a checklist. You're saying, okay, got all the forts, got all the monies, got all the fragments, I stole everything, I did everything, I killed every enemy. That's kind of piratey. That's not very assassiny.
Yeah.
And so we realized there were two options, right? And we actually considered this somehow. And it was actually Corey that told us to go all the way. He read my first draft of the script, and he's like, I don't know. I don't see him accepting the assassins this early, because he had actually happened in sequence 11 earlier. And I reread it, and I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It just can't happen. It just can't happen. Like he's not fully there yet. And plus, Jean and Ash discussed it. I was like, could we really complete his transformation to the assassins by taking away his boat? Or, I think there's a lot of people that say hey, we should be an assassin pirate. And I was like, that doesn't actually work very well.
It's inherently contradictory.
If that's why we actually said he's a pirate trained by assassins, because marketing wanted to say he's a pirate assassin. And I was like, nope.
I'd like to point out that even he's more a pirate trained by Templars, really.
Yeah, well, he's trained by everybody he comes across.
All the assassin moves were taught to him by the Templars, which I thought was actually kind of funny.
Yes, yeah. That was something we wanted to do. I thought it was fun too. But yeah, Mary Read still gives him quite a schooling on the actual creed, so.
Yeah.
but that was something we wanted to play with, was that Edward doesn't just steal money, he steals ideas, and he steals concepts, and he steals identities.
Yep.
He's toying with all these things because they're just fodder for getting what he wants.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole goal. So that's the reason why we said you don't become an assassin until the very, 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 very end, because otherwise it doesn't make sense with the game mechanics. You would have jumped right back in and just
Yeah.
like if it had been sequence 11, you would have jumped right back out and then just gone after the legendary ships, and then you would have taken down a couple more forts, and
Sure.
you just, there's no reason to do that as an assassin. The assassins are supposed to kill specific targets who are detrimental to liberty. You don't go just randomly killing the agents of empires who probably want to go home and see their families at night.
Sure. Sure.
So in that way, we tried to fuse the mechanics in the story as closely as possible, and I think we did a decent job. I think GTA's Trevor is the other embodiment of that, right? Like GTA 5's Trevor is the embodiment of the typical GTA player. You just want to run around and just destroy things because you're in a safe place with these mechanics, right? You're like, I can fly an airplane into the back of a truck and then parachute out and all that. You're crazy, and that the character should reflect a player's natural tendencies.
Yeah. Also kind of reminds me of Far Cry 3. It's kind of this funny thing because it's like your friends are in danger, but you're just going off like taking hang gliders, like doing all this crazy shit, and it's actually very like important to the story that Jason is doing all of this.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
instead of going after his friends and stuff like that, right?
I almost wish that I wished in Far Cry 3 the one big change I would have done was if you take too long, if you're going off and messing around with people, your friends die. You show up and they're like, "Yeah, we shot this girl in the head like 6 days ago," and you're like, "Oh my god, really?" Like, well, I was off hang gliding.
It's a funny idea that I don't think would have actually gone over very well.
No,
But yeah,
But that's actually sort of, maybe that's in some part. Maybe that's why that's why we actually have Caroline die off screen. Because Edward
so busy being a pirate. Yeah,
exactly. He's so busy being a pirate, and then he gets that note, and he's like, "Oh, damn it! I thought that." There's this sense when you're young that you have all the time in the world, right?
Sure.
And you're just like, "Oh, I'll just get back to that," and then like one day, I had this great sense. I think probably in my 20s. I think it'd been the longest I'd been away from home without going home, because I grew up in Spokane, Washington, near Seattle. And I remember just coming home in my late 20s or early 30s, and my parents looked a lot older.
Yeah.
And it would probably been maybe a year since I'd seen them, because maybe I was in Ireland at the time going to school. And I was like, whoa, like time does pass, and you can't go back. There's certain things you just can't go back to. There's certain opportunities you miss out on. And I think a good story can do that, where you really do feel a sense of loss. And I hope that the deaths in Black Flag especially, this has the highest friend body count of any AC game, probably.
Yeah.
I think I wanted that sense of like, Edward really looks back and is like, oh, damn it. I was going after this one thing the whole time, and then I didn't see that everything else was falling apart around me.